On Monday, she was forcibly removed from outside an oil terminal in Sweden, hours after a court gave her her first ever fine for disobeying police. Today, almost undetected, the world's most famous climate activist, Greta Thunberg, joined campaigners at the Department for Net Zero, protesting against what could become the largest new oil and gas development in the UK. Norwegian energy giant Equinor has its eyes on Rosebank off the coast of Scotland, and Net Zero Minister Grant Shapps holds the keys.
Rosebank will mean climate crash. The fact that the UK government is even considering to approve this tells us exactly how out of touch with the reality they are.
Rosebank's based 80 miles off the Shetland coast in the North Atlantic. Campaigners say burning its oil and gas would produce more carbon than all annual emissions from the 28 lowest income countries in the world and their 700 million inhabitants, the equivalent of running 56 coal-fired power stations for a year.
All the record-breaking heat waves and the extreme weather events we've seen during this summer is just the beginning of a rapidly escalating existential crisis. We will be seeing much more of this. This is not the new normal. It will continue to escalate and get worse until we start to take real action. And that's why we need to do it now, before it gets even worse.
Just this week, the UN described extreme weather sweeping the globe this summer as the new norm.
The era of global warming has ended. The era of global boiling has arrived.
Its Secretary-General has often described oil and gas as incompatible with the survival of humanity.
And licensing or funding of new oil and gas.
His calls for no new licenses echoed by the International Energy Agency.
The ones we have already today are more than enough.
And US Special Envoy for Climate.
We don't need new oil and gas coal projects.
And although the British government has yet to grant a licence for Rosebank, it's effectively promised to cover 90% of the cost of building it through tax breaks introduced last year to encourage new oil and gas production. Grant Shapps said the government would max out the UK's remaining North Sea reserves, his department telling us today that Rosebank would provide jobs and that the switch from fossil fuels couldn't happen overnight.
Yes, we're going to make progress towards net zero, but we're going to do that in a proportionate and pragmatic way that doesn't unnecessarily give people more hassle and more cost in their life.
The Prime Minister recently hinted that he might water down green policies because the cost of living has got so high. What do you make of that?
To believe that you can focus on one crisis without also addressing the other is very short-sighted thinking. We seem to be physically incapable of having more than one thought in our head at the same time right now. And that's very, very dangerous.
You recently got arrested and you got fined for disobeying the police. That's the first time that that's ever happened. Is this a signal that you might start to change your tactics?
I'm going to continue. Like I've done similar things many times before, and this was just the first time I got fined for it. But we're not going to back down.
The ministers inside this building say that Rosebank is compatible with net zero. What do you say to them?
You have to be on the right side of history. We are many who are judging you and who are watching you. If you think that you can just get away with a few more years, a few more months of continued business as usual to maximize short-term profits, then you are very wrong and history will judge you very poorly.